The point of this question is to ask you if you really understand, first of all, what inequalities mean, and second of all, what fractions and absolute value signs mean, and how all these things interact together. So let's take a look here and just list the things we know. It's not much. We know that the absolute value of b over a is greater than 1. And all that's telling me is that b is a big number and a is a small number. Okay, so let's write that down. B is big and a is small. That's all I'm getting from this. B could be 10, a could be 1. B could be 1,000,000, a could be 7. It just needs to be something so that if you take b divided by a, it's going to be something greater than 1. Now that absolute value symbol, the purpose of that thing is to hide from us which one of these things is positive and which one is negative. I don't know which one is which. All I know is that they have opposite signs from each other. So that's kind of important too. That means b is plus or minus big and a is plus or minus small. Okay, so kind of a weird way to phrase things, but that's what we have. Now let's start talking about these possibilities here and which of those might be true. So what is b squared? Well, if b is big, then b squared is big. And what is a squared? Well, if a is small, then a squared is small. Obviously, I'm not putting real numbers on this. I'm being very general. But I do know that b squared and a squared are both positive numbers. Okay, that is one thing I do know here. So take a look at these options and see if there's anything we can figure out as definitely being true. Remember, these must be true. So there's no possibility of this being wrong. I'm going to look at this one first. B squared greater than a squared. Well, yeah, that's true. B squared is big and a squared is small, and they're both positive numbers. But b times a, think about that. What is b times a? If they're opposite signs, that means b times a is negative. And although b squared is greater than a negative is not greater than a squared. So this one, I'm afraid, is false on that basis. Let's take another look at these. Oh, b less than a. That's obviously false, right? Because b is big and a is small. So if b is 10 and a is 5, then that would be false. There may be cases where that's true, like b is negative 5 and a is 3. Take a look at this. This one's actually interesting. Pretend that b over a is something like this, negative 10 over 3. According to the initial conditions, that could be true. And that is greater than 1. So it's a possibility that this one is true, right? There was a possibility of it being true, but it is not necessarily definitely true. I can't say it must be true. Okay, so that's why we crossed that one out. And I know that b squared is less than a squared. We've already talked about that. B squared is big, a squared is small. They're both positive. So that one is completely false. Now these other two are interesting because one of them is another maybe. Let's talk about 1 over b. Right, this guy. b negative 1, or b to the negative 1 power less than a to the negative 1 power. Is that true? Well, maybe. What that means is 1 over b is less than 1 over a. And there are cases where this is going to be true, like, for example, 1 over 10, 1 over negative 10 is less than 1 over 3. That's true. Negative numbers are less than positive numbers. But there's another case that's not true, like 1 over positive 10, 1 over negative 3. That is false. So this one right here is another one of the maybes, and I'm going to cross the maybes out with a different color just so we can kind of keep track. That's a maybe, that's a maybe. They're not definitely trues. The only one that must be true by process of elimination is b over a less than a over b. Let me show, for example, why that is actually a definite. Okay, let's just wipe some of these out. Why must that thing be true? And maybe if you had found this one while you were working through them, you would say, yes, this is definitely true. I don't need to check the others. That could save you some time. Well, b over a, we've already established, is a big negative, right? Because they're opposite signs. That's the key here. They're opposite signs, so b divided by a must be a big negative number. And therefore, a divided by b is a small negative number. Well, think about where these are on a number line. If you've got a number line like this, there's 0. Here's a over b, it's a small negative number. Here's b over a, it's a big negative number. Which one is smaller than the other? You would say, oh, well, obviously, b over a is less than a over b. It's more negative.